Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Restitching the Tapestry. My name is Donny Winter, and I am joined by my dear friend Ari Whipple for our 14th episode, discussing a whole slew full of different things. So prepare yourselves for an exciting, wild ride tonight. We have our beverages ready to go. Ari, a little bit more classy than me, has some rosé. I have
I
a
needed a
mango.
big glass today.
I have my mango lemonade truly, and it's very possible I may need a second one, depending on how things go. Um, so we decided to take a month relaxation break, mostly because we realized that as creators, and considering we're talking about a lot of very difficult subjects, it's important every now and then to recharge creatively. And of course, like we both were really busy during the month of September, and we felt it necessary to at least have a little brief break until October and then return with a grand reentrance. So, Ari, how have you been doing?
I've been doing well, I was having a little bit of a slip in September. I needed that break for sure. Um it was I was definitely needing some recharge time. But I feel a lot better now. I definitely feel like I'm ready to go for October. I feel great. I'm going to be making daily videos on my channel in October because it's Inktober. And I'm going to be doing daily divination polls on my channel. But I'm ready to do podcasting in October. And I'm ready. Yeah. So
Same here. Like honestly, I can exactly echo how that feels as well because like I for September, like I'm dedicated most of the month to getting school going again and um also getting my first book ready to go for publication, and that's been out for a couple of weeks now. Shameless self-promotion. If you've not checked out Carbon Footprint yet, go to Amazon because it's there. But also some shameless promotion for Ari's channel as well, Strange Nothings. Go subscribe to that too. And speaking of Inktober, I'm glad that you mentioned Inktober because last year I was annoyed that there was no like Inktober equivalent for poetry. So I
are you going to do
invented
October again?
October. Yes.
Yes.
And I've already written a couple of poems. I just haven't posted them yet. So I'm going to be catching up here probably tomorrow on that, but I'm excited. I think doing this type of creative thing in October and then having NaNoWriMo in November. I think those months are like a great way to get your creative juices flowing. So I'm really excited to do that. So it looks like we have Ari on or Ari Arpi on. We have Igni here. It's good to see both of you. I hope you're both doing well. Yeah.
Haven't seen them for a while. Nice to see you guys.
I know it's been like it just feels good doing this again. It feels good doing this again. And I just feel like a whole new like spark of energy. So without further ado, let's revisit our show's mission statement, shall we? So many witness different atrocities, large or small, that fray the social fabric around us. And much of the time, many may feel powerless and really not know how to address such things. This fray has gotten worse with the rise of social media, being as we are all able to share in a collective trauma and witness it go viral in real time, and also experience this collective grief or outrage on a massive scale. And that begs the question of what can we do to mend the communities that have been or that have seen considerable tragedy, most of which privileged groups have caused, and many who don't admit their own involvement. So, through this show, our goal is to work on restitching that tapestry together through conversation, creativity, and action. And honestly, all of that is done through our own education, like educating ourselves, and then using what we find to help perpetuate that as well. So, welcome back to Restitching the Tapestry. So, tonight's topic is about the post presidential debate and about essential workers, although I will say a pretty large sum or portion of our show tonight is going to be reflecting on current events over the past week because there has been a lot going on, like a super duper a lot going on. And
Kind
I
of a mishmash of what we're talking about tonight, kind of just like an amalgamation of stuff that's happening.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it's going to transition into talking about essential workers. So we'll get there, but we really do feel the need to address some very important events. And obviously the first breaking event that has happened today is that President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump were diagnosed with COVID-19. They, along with some other White House journalism staffers, and I believe one other official, have been placed on quarantine because they were exposed and tested and then diagnosed with COVID-19, which is a little bit, I mean, it's a little unsettling. I was watching the news earlier and there was like a lot of like latent anxiety about, like, I mean, our commander in chief getting infected by the virus that he's kind of downplayed over the past several months. So, Ari, what was your whole reaction to that? Like, what are your thoughts?
So I found out when I woke up this morning. I literally woke up. I literally was awake for about maybe less than a minute. My sister burst into my room and said, "Randy, the president has COVID." Like literally burst into my room and said, "The president has COVID." And I literally was like wiping the sleep out of my eyes, and I was like, this has to be a dream. Like this can't be happening in reality. Like I was like trying to like grasp my mind around this issue, and I was like, this can't be real. Like this, it seems so unreal. Like, and then I was like thinking about it, and I was like, well, okay, he's been doing rallies and he's been doing things that have been like really unsafe. So it makes sense that he would get infected because kind of he's been kind of like skirting the natural law of things. So like it makes sense that eventually he's going to get sick. But
Hmm.
like but then I started to think about it even more, and I was like, it's like half the country woke up and they realized COVID exists. Because I saw a whole bunch of people who had been like not wearing masks, like wearing masks today. Like like because it seemed like it was like a lot of people who had like been wearing masks over the beginning of COVID were starting to become more lax and not wearing masks. But today I saw everybody wearing masks today. Like I didn't see a single person not wearing a mask today. Everybody was wearing masks. But I had been wearing a mask all along, like because I wanted to be safe. But like I had seen like kind of like a decline, and today it was like everybody was wearing masks, and it was like it because it was like even the president can get COVID. You don't want to not wear a mask. So like everybody was wearing masks. Everybody was like, I don't want to be like the president. I don't want to get COVID. I'm going to wear a mask. And so it was just like this weird, surreal, like reality. Like people were like aware, hyper aware that like COVID is still a thing. Maybe I should be more careful. Maybe I should be more hyper aware of the fact that like that this is still a thing and that you can still get it, and that even our president is getting this, and that I should be more careful.
Right. Like I noticed that today too when I was out and about. Like everybody seemed to be very diligent wearing masks and echoing what you said. I've also noticed people over the last at least month or so getting, I don't know, this false sense of security and like, wearing their not wearing their masks, wearing it incorrectly. I saw so many people wearing it like beneath their noses, but today everyone was wearing it like correctly. And it's, to me, it's really unfortunate and sad that it takes our president and first lady to get COVID-19 in order for those people to understand that it should be taken seriously. But it's no surprise that that would happen because, I mean, with a leader who isn't really acknowledging the severity or the significance of the virus, like, people are going to do what they think is best based on how seriously those in power take it, you know? And it's really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate.
But I think it's going to be a good thing in the long run for our country because I think that the number of cases might decline in the long run because more people are going to take it seriously, at least for the next like little bit here, because they're going to start masking up. They're going to start washing their hands again. They're going to start using sanitizer because our president got sick. And so they're going to start thinking again, and they're going to start going, hey, I need to start being more clear about this for the fall months when COVID is going to be, when they're at risk for COVID, which is like a high time, like when it's like you're more prone to get it because of the flu being active, because of COVID still being around, because of more fall allergies being around. So, like, all of these things being airborne and stuff, as well as COVID being around. So, I think that this is going to be a good thing in the long run for him getting sick because it's going to be people being more thoughtful. And maybe it's a blessing in disguise that people are going to be like, they're going to be thinking more, and maybe they'll even go out and get the flu shot because they're going to be thinking, hey, I don't want to get sick. I'm going to go do something about this. So
Right.
I'm hoping that this actually is going to be like a blessing in disguise that, like, for people, you know what I
Right.
mean?
I agree. And I know, like, because I've also seen some people joking about like the president's health and saying that he deserves it, so on and so forth. And I personally, like, I don't agree with statements like that because as much as I do not appreciate how hateful our president is, I don't wish COVID-19 on anybody, you know? So, I mean, it's sad that it could be a blessing in disguise. I just hope that everyone will be okay and that maybe people will take it seriously now and acknowledge that if somebody who has that much security, who has that many health officials surrounding him can get COVID-19, literally anybody can, you know? So it looks like we have Killer Rodan on here. It's good to see you, my friend. Lagiac, Lagiacris, the Terminator. I probably slaughtered your name. I unfortunately, like, it'll be an ongoing joke, me slaughtering your name, so I apologize. So, um, and he says that, or they say, I'm not sure of identity, but good thing is I always keep a mask and hand sanitizer with me in my fanny pack. There's nothing wrong with that. I also keep I keep sanitizer and masks with me. I always have some in my car, and I have, like, in my school bag, I always keep some hand sanitizer with me and
Yeah,
multiple masks.
I keep hand sanitizer in my car, and every time I leave a store or go out somewhere, I will put hand sanitizer in before I take my mask off.
Yeah. Yeah, like, it's just, I mean, sometimes I might forget if I'm, like, in a hurry, but then I remember, I'm like, "Okay, I need to make sure that, I follow these steps," so on and so forth. So, Um, yeah, like, I think people, like we were saying, were lulled into a false sense of security because for some reason today, all hell seems to have broken loose, not only with the president and first lady getting COVID-19, but one of my dear friends told me that there was a COVID-19 outbreak at a local elementary school, and her kid goes to that elementary school. One of my parents said somebody at their job said that there was like a COVID-19 like potential exposures. So it's so real. Like, and I think that a lot of people don't take it seriously because they don't have anybody in close proximity who's been adversely affected by it or know somebody who
I
has.
I think that it's becoming more that people like, that you know somebody who's been affected by it, and that somebody who has, like because there's so many people who are getting it and, like, so many people who are dying from it, that it's becoming more realistic that you do know somebody who's becoming affected by it. And like, I think that like the fact the president is getting it is like just a reality check. It's just like a real reality check that like actual people are getting it. And it's just for people who had like denied for so long that it was a real thing, the people who had been calling it a hoax, even though real people were getting it, who just denied and denied and denied and denied over and over again, who were going to these rallies without masks on, who just were not paying attention to facts, who just wanted to deny science.
Yep.
It's just a smack in the face. Like, it's like half the country woke up and saw reality today.
Well, I think we're in this state where so many people are like, obviously, there is a lot of manipulation happening, like, not only from the power of those powers that be, but also media in some instances. And people have kind of been conditioned to think that nothing is trustworthy anymore. And I think that's why, like, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just trying to come up with an explanation, but I think that's part of also why a lot of people just never really took it seriously either. Um, but Terminator says, I'm gonna start saying Terminator so I don't slaughter your name anymore. Hope that's okay. I've had 4 or so close calls with the pandemic so far. Oh my
Wow,
goodness, I'm sorry to hear that.
that's intense.
Iggy said that, that his internet cut out. We are currently talking about people not taking the pandemic seriously. Um, so I mean, I can't say that I've had, like, any super close calls with it. I will say though, and I can only
Um,
get Oh, go
I
ahead.
had a I've had a close call with it.
Oh, you did?
Well,
Huh.
yeah, a couple times.
Oh, no.
Well, once I had a manic episode during the pandemic, and I had to stay in the hospital over the weekend, and
Oh,
they tested me, and so I had to stay with some people, stay in the hospital, and so, it's kind of a scary situation when you're in the hospital with a bunch of people. So to me, that's considered what I consider a close call, because even though you're being tested, um, also I had to quarantine after I went to the Black Lives Matter protest. My family considered that a close call because you're around a lot of people who you don't know whether or not they may have it. So you're even though you're wearing a mask and like you're marching, um, you're around a lot of people who it's a lot of unknown. So I had to quarantine for 2 weeks after that.
yeah,
But there was
yeah.
somebody in my building who had COVID, and my
Uh,
apartment building, that was a close call.
oh, I remember you mentioning that to me. I guess I've had a couple because I did go to a protest as well, and I did quarantine myself after that. I also had a close call probably week number 3 of the semester, so a couple of weeks ago, because there was an outbreak at one of the schools that I work at, and a couple of my students notified me, and, um, thankfully, I did not have any direct contact with those students, but it was a very, like, unnerving experience because I had to be like, "Alright, do I have to email my classes? What do I do?" It was just this it was very it's very real, and I hope that now people will start taking it a little bit more seriously. Um, but Keller Rodan asks, "The pandemic can be used as a setting for a horror film. What do you 2 think?"
They actually used it already. They used pandemic-like situations in the movie. Oh, what was it called? Uh, Soylent Green. Soylent Green had pandemic-like situations.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's been a few different, like, shows and movies that have
It's
and I can
actually really common.
yeah, I can imagine that it's gonna like, even, like, for probably the next decade or so, it's probably gonna be a pretty common, um, theme across multiple different films and TV shows and stuff like that, so but, building off from that, off from the situation of, Trump and Melania being diagnosed with COVID-19. Another unfortunate event happened in Michigan. Today, actually, the Michigan Supreme Court, after a coalition gathered up enough signatures on a petition, voted our governor's emergency powers during the pandemic as being unconstitutional and is essentially revoking them. So, eh, I'd have to read more detailed fine print on it, but it sounds to me that what things we had in place right now are going to get completely rolled back within, I believe it was 21 days. So to me, it's just extremely ironic that that happened, considering what news we found out today about the president. So it's just, I really think that the decision made by these petitioners and the Supreme Court was extremely selfish, considering it does not take into account those people who've been affected by COVID-19. Um, and now it could potentially cause more people to be exposed to it. So it's just eye
So
roll.
what do you think is gonna happen with the Supreme Court now that Trump is set? Do you think that the Supreme Court's gonna get pushed through, or do you think there's gonna be a delay?
Well, so I'm glad that you mentioned that because we did want to talk about Justice Ginsburg passing and everything going on with that. I think that they will find a way to get it to go through. They seem very determined with it. As far as I'm aware right now, all they need really is the Senate vote to, ratify what is her name? Amy Coney Barrett's, um, nomination. So, I I'm not gonna lie, like, as an LGBTQ plus person, and I'm sure you can probably relate to this as well, Ari, this is really scary
Well,
because
I'm LGBTQ plus too. I'm
oh, that's why
bi.
well, that's why I said as you can probably relate as well because you are in that community. Um, it's scary. Like, we are scared because if you do research on this person, she has a very anti-LGBTQ plus history. Um, she is in essence the exact opposite of Justice Ginsburg was. So a lot of people are fearful that a dominantly conservative Supreme Court will roll back a lot of rights for LGBTQ plus people, women, other minority groups, marginalized communities, and it's like the fear is valid.
And she's young, so it'd be for a generation.
Exactly, exactly. What were your thoughts on all of that?
Um, I mean, I'm nervous. I'm nervous about what will happen. Um, I I'm hopeful that people will do the right thing and make sure she's not confirmed. But you know, I we have lived kind of a charmed life up to this point, and that we have lived a long time with a liberal court, and it is not always assured that it's going to be the case, and that sometimes we do have to fight for a while. Um, and that but it is not always the will of the people in which things happen. They can fill the court with conservative judges, and it is against the will of the people sometimes. And I don't like it. It's not what I want. It's not what you want. It's not what a majority of the Americans want. Um, but it still may happen, unfortunately. And we're just gonna have to fight as much as we can, tooth and nail, to figure it out. But I think that all things happen in their time, and that we can just do what we can do.
Agreed. Agreed. And I've been telling people, because I mean, I think it's important right now to have important conversations about voting and the decisions that we make toward in the next month. And I think a lot of people just aren't realizing the severity of the threat that it poses, to marginalized communities. And the truth is, all it would take, I mean, if this nomination does go forward and it's confirmed and everything, all it takes is a court case dealing with the particular area or subject or group of people to go through in order to reverse something. Um,
I
I'm
just
ho
don't think that they're gonna do any rollbacks on, like, abortion or, like, gay marriage. I just don't think that they're gonna do rollbacks on anything that they previously ruled on. I just I just don't see that happening. I just I just don't see them taking away rights, because it's just not in their best interest to do that as a court. Like, to not expand, to decrease rights after they've expanded upon them, just doesn't seem in the court's best interest after they've given them. It's like once you've given those rights, they've given them and it's set, kind of done.
Mhm.
Like, they've made their ruling, the rules are done, it's already set.
Well, I hope that that is the case. I really do. I really do. Um, but, like, I've read some interviews with conservatives, and watched some news reports, and there are some who literally, I don't have the quotes off the top of my head, but there are some who've actually quoted touting that this would be essentially a wall against any further LGBTQ progression. Um, I don't know if, I mean, because I know, like, there's a certain degree of, like, unbiased, like, stances the court's expected to uphold. They're supposed to be impartial. It is my hope that they continue to be, and that they continue to make their rulings from a very humanistic perspective, considering the well-being of people. Um, and honestly, at the end of the day, like, I know our votes may not sway the justices directly, but we can sway who gets elected into the positions that may influence them in the future. So that's why I think it's very important to register to vote. It's very important to actually vote, because our voice does matter, even though we may just not realize that, because a lot of people get discouraged. Like, we're an individual, right? Like, what good can an individual do? But I think, I don't know, there's power in even an individual. So
I think that we need to change the way that the Supreme Court is set up and the way that we have our justices. Like, a lifetime appointment seems like so long.
right.
Like, it's so long.
Agreed. Yeah. And it makes it very difficult for different perspectives to come through. And that's why there's sometimes, with some different social aspects, that's why there's little to no momentum, or, I mean, hopefully not regression, because we would not want that to happen. But um so let's talk about the debate.
Hello, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin. So let's talk about the first presidential debate, which happened, when was
Let
it?
me just, before we get started on that, let me just,
Oh, let me take a good guzzle here.
Okay, now let's talk about the debate.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay, so on Tuesday night, the first presidential debate happened, and if you were monitoring the interwebs that entire evening, you know that it was a dumpster fire inside a train wreck on an exploding barge, let's just
It
say.
it was like it just brought me back to like 2016. Do you remember the debates from 2016?
Oh,
It was
yeah.
like it was like that all over again.
Oh, yeah. Except honestly, like, I feel like this was, for me, more intense because, like, I don't know, I
No,
remember.
I feel like the anxiety I felt during the 2016 election was like I was like up here during 2016 and I was like because I've been doing meditating lately, I was, like, down here for his because I'm so used to Trump by now, I'm,
Mhm.
like, kinda, like, numb to him, so, like, everything he does now, I'm just so used to it, and I'm so calloused, like, my skin is so thick now that I'm just like, "Yeah, it's Trump, whatever." I'm just so, like, I can't even I'm just like, "Whatever, it's Trump. He's just gonna be like that, and whatever. I don't even care anymore." And so I just watched the debate, and I was just like, "It's just gonna be like an hour and a half of Trump being Trump." And, like, that's how I went into this, is it's gonna be Trump being Trump and Biden going, "Shut up, baby man."
It, like, I could tell the moderator, I can't remember his name off the top of my
Chris
head.
Wallace.
Chris Wallace, I could tell that he was getting really frazzled at certain points, because at the beginning, I could tell that he,
Moderator. That's
well,
funny that you
oh, yeah.
call him a moderator. Like
He
he was moderating anything.
He didn't, you could tell that he did not want to speak against the president. You could tell that he was, like, trying to make a joke of of the president's continual interruptions and bullying
He's
behavior.
like, "Hey, Mr. President, maybe you should reel it in a little. Maybe."
"Hey, president, we're gonna talk about law and order now. You should be happy about that." It's like, let's not
Joke
enable
with the
the
president.
I like like, it's interesting because I, 'cause I've had some conversations about the debate with people, and I know some people were upset that, Joe Biden was feeding into the president's behavior as well, and I couldn't help but to think that had he not, though, people would accuse him of being weak.
I feel
Um
like at a certain point, like if somebody's like taunting you, it's sort of like Hillary Clinton, her idea was like when they go low, you go high. And so
Mhm,
you're just supposed to show grace and poise and charisma and just stick to the issues. And so they knocked her for just not participating in his bullying. And so they
yeah,
said she was weak and that she was just this weak willed woman who just never did anything and she just never participated. And she was just like this little foofy woman who just never did anything. So Biden went into this and he said, okay, he goes low. I'm going to hit him hard and I'm going to hit back and I'm not going to let him play these games with me. If he calls me, I'm going to tell him to shut the hell up and let me talk.
yep.
And so he did. That's what he did. He went in and he said, "Shut the hell up, man. I've got something to say. I'm talking about the issues. We're going to focus on what I have to say. I'm not going to let you talk because it's my turn and it's me and I'm going to be a man about this and you're not going to emasculate me. You're not going to take away my power. I'm in this to win this."
Oh, yeah, for sure. I know, like, I had some friends who couldn't watch the debate, like, they watched it for a little while, but couldn't because, like, honestly, a lot of the president's behavior reminded them of, like, abusiveness, like, behavior that an abuser would use, and as someone who's been emotionally abused myself, like, it was very difficult for me to watch, especially with the continual interruptions, because that's what they do. Like, they will speak over you until you just give up. And and to me, it just in my world, now keep in mind, like, I am a very liberal person, but in my world, I would hope that people would see that type of behavior and think, "This is an atrocity, this shouldn't be happening, it's very non-professional, it's dangerous because it enables the same behavior." Because let's face it, both of these people have a very, very significant social influence. So, like, there should be some careful monitoring of behavior, but considering that politics now have turned into more so an entertainment spectacle, I don't feel like people gauge that anymore. They don't consider that, you know?
It was really toxic what it was, all
Oh,
of
yeah,
it.
it was.
The moderator was enabling Trump. Trump was being extremely toxic. Joe Biden was, like, trying to, like, manage the best he could, and he was hitting back, but he was also, at the same time, kind of being toxic at the same time,
Mhm.
because he was being hyper masculine, he was flexing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay, Killer Rodan. We appreciate you joining us today,
But yeah, thanks for showing up.
but, it's just like, I've been having conversations with a few people about this as well, about how we are in this state where we're kind of in a battle for I don't wanna say a battle for humanity because that does sound super cheesy, but I think we are in a battle for integrity and what's the word I'm thinking of? Like, it's not
I feel like
necessarily.
it was in 2016, it was a battle for our reality. It's a battle for our sense of reality, of, like,
Mm,
what is real, and, like, is it is it Trump's reality or is it Biden's reality? And is it this reality in which facts matter, or is it Trump's reality in which, what he says goes?
right, exactly. It's made it very apparent how deep the rhetorical manipulation goes. There is a lot of very,
And
very deep
and
rhetorical.
Trump will spin, and he will spin and spin and spin and spin and spin, and he can go for a long time, and a lot of people really believe everything that he has to say is the gospel truth, just without question.
It's just really ironic. Like, it's frustratingly ironic to me that those people believe everything he says, yet if
And
a
then they
sign
create, not only do they believe everything he says, but they will create these whole worlds of facts that have no basis in reality. Like that the coronavirus is a hoax, that 5G has created coronavirus, that um that just all sorts of things that just things that were on the verge of coming up with a cure because that's what Trump said, that just that were that were just things that, like, are totally not anywhere near the basis of reality, and because Trump has said them, or Trump has retweeted them, or that we're not in a country of built on racism in which cops shoot black people. Like,
oh my god.
you know
You
what I
know,
mean?
it's like when a false narrative is woven, it's sticky like a spider web. A weird
Right,
analogy, but like,
but
and I
it's
think he
so
realizes that.
It's so insidious, and where they victim blame, and where they treat people as, like, they commodify people as, like, and it's where the environment is not treated with care, and where they treat I it's just it's so unnerving the way that they will just trash environments and people and just whole systems because it's good for business, it's good for um
Well,
the select few.
at the end of the day, the supporters are the type of people who don't want big government, largely.
They don't want
Yet,
big government, but they want big business.
exactly, they want big business, and they want big institutions, though, that connect with the government, like like military industrial complex, like we were talking about, like, and it's this weird, to me, it's like this strange Stockholm syndrome of not realizing that the very thing that is being encouraged and supported is the actual thing that's disempowering and dismantling, you know? So it's just speaking of, because you mentioned the atrocities against the Black community, our president did not denounce white supremacists.
Yeah, Proud Boys stand by.
Like,
Stand what did he say
he
specifically?
said, stand down and stand by.
Or stand up or stand by or something?
I'm fairly sure it was stand down.
Stand back and stand by.
Stand back, because stand down would have been like, don't, stop, right? So,
Stand back and stand by, my sister said.
oh my God. Like, I'm just still, I'm just baffled. Like, I'm not baffled because part of me is not surprised, but
I'm
another
not
part of,
surprised because he did this all along. He's done this all along.
but it
But
was,
they said literally, and then he denounced Antifa, which
mhm,
Antifa is an idea, not an organization. But regardless, he literally just like it was like he like literally physically could not denounce white
well,
supremacy.
and a lot of analyzers drew the conclusion that it's because, though, like, he gains a lot of support from people enabled by those hateful stances or who share in those hateful racist notions, you know? And like, I mean, considering that was like a very significant public display and statement, like, my hope is that people will take that seriously, but
Well, and he was enabling them to go poll watch.
mhm. Oh, that's scary too,
Right,
because
because how's the election gonna go? Are they gonna just show up at the polls and just start watching? Are they gonna start intimidating people at the polls to not vote?
right. Yep, exactly.
I mean, that scares me. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
I
that
voted by
scares me too.
mail. I've already voted. I voted by mail, but, like, imagine having a bunch of Proud Boys show up at the polls with guns and being like, "Who you gonna vote for?"
Yep,
Like, who's gonna stop them?
exactly.
Because we know historically, we know that, like, nobody really tells white people with guns to go away because it's their right to protest with guns.
Right. Well, at the end of the day, to me, it's all about exerting power, showing a force, creating a show of force, because people are emboldened by those acts of power, those displays of power, because they know that it scares people, it disempowers other people, especially marginalized groups who are way more vulnerable Terminator says, all the problems in this world, I could name a few, but probably won't at this moment because it's not a good time. I've begun to build my rage up, though I'm trying to keep it cool. It's for me, I don't know if it's rage for me per se. Like, I think it's just this,
Justifiable anger.
it's anger, but at the same time, it's like this numbness too. Like you were mentioning, like feeling like this callous kind of building over ourselves. Like, I feel that too.
Where it's just like same shit, different day.
Yeah, and see, part of me is scared of that feeling also because my worry is that if I let that anger get calloused over, will I be able to call out atrocities when I see them? Will I be able to speak to or against things that are very problematic on a human level? Because sometimes when we get numb like that, we just like the whole world fades to gray and we don't see the contrast in anything. At least that's for me. Like, I can't speak for you because you probably experience it way differently. But
No, I'm saying I you have to kind of grow a thick skin about stuff because if you're so sensitive to it all the time, it's like you become overwhelmed by it and like
yeah,
you can't act. You can't do anything about it. You're just like so emotional about it and you can't do anything about it. You're just so like overwhelmed by your
yeah,
emotions.
it's like you short circuit because the emotion. It's interesting that you mentioned that. It's now that I think about it, like I have grown this thick skin, but there is another part of me where like this fire has been lit where I'm like we're gonna talk, like we're gonna call this out. Like I've been very motivated too. Like it's a very interesting spectrum, let's just say. So
Like, I still call stuff out. You gotta call it
oh
out, but,
yeah,
like,
because if
you
you
gotta have
don't.
a thick skin because if you don't have a thick skin, it'll eat you alive.
Oh yeah, well, and see, like I guess what really frustrates me is like I know there are so many liberals out there who are afraid of speaking up, afraid of calling out injustices because it's not like I mean, I feel like conflict is not something that a lot of liberals do, you know?
I think you just gotta keep your center because, like, if you let Trump get to you, if you, like, are triggered by every little thing that Trump says, if you're triggered by every little thing that the Republican Party does and says and is, like, you're not gonna live your life and they're not gonna be happy
Oh,
because, like,
yeah.
they're gonna be doing stuff every day. Like, you gotta focus on your goals and what you wanna do and just like work on manifesting the things that you want in your life.
Well, and the truth is, like, I'm glad that you mentioned that because I think there is like, self-care is important, 100%. And I also think it's very possible to not get triggered by everything that he or they say, while at the same time still exercising your perspective, educating when and where you can, and holding like very troubling stances and behaviors accountable when appropriate. Like I feel like there is a feasible balance. And I feel like I've gotten to that point myself where I've
Mhm.
I've reached that balance.
I think you have, yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, like I'm not saying that it doesn't get exhausting sometimes, but when it does, like recharge, like that's all you can do,
Right.
instead of allowing it to
Overwhelm you.
fester, yeah, or overwhelm you. So, um, like honestly, and this is transitioning into talking a little bit more about essential workers because I just realized we're like 50 minutes into our show.
Essential workers.
But we've been having a good conversation. Like, I mean, I guess now that I'm working again, I am considered an essential worker because I'm teaching face to face.
You are an essential worker.
Um, but honestly, I feel like I have a little bit more sway over who I meet face to face, how long I spend with them. whereas there are a lot of essential workers who don't have that luxury, like those who were working in services or things like that. And
A lot of essential workers like are immigrants and African Americans, and a lot of essential workers are working for just minimum wage, and they have to work for like lots of hours at a time, and they're interacting with a lot of people at a lot, like, for extended periods of time. So, like, it's really dangerous for them. So, they don't get, like, the thanks sometimes.
oh
Like,
yeah,
they
for sure.
we thank our essential workers, but, like, they kinda get the shit end of the stick.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of stories of people still getting treated horribly by by customers, for example, or clientele, however you want to refer to it. Um, in the middle of a pandemic, nonetheless. Like, I don't think that essential workers should be treated negatively in any sense. I mean, unless like the essential workers being very horrible and being rude and disrespectful or whatever. But I think realizing that these essential workers are what's sustaining us right now, and actually not just right now, all the time, they deserve way more respect. And it deserves consistency, not conditional respect.
Like, one day I got mad at a grocery store worker, and then I went home and felt horrible about it because she did something with, like, a bottle return slip, and then I went home and I was like, "I am the worst person in the whole world. Why did I get mad at her about a bottle return slip?" Like, she's just doing her job. She has the hardest job in the whole world. And I wanted to literally go back to her and, like, apologize. I, like, literally almost walked back into the store and, like, apologized to her, and I was like, "That would be weird, just, like, let it go." But, like, that's kind of, like, the type of person I am, is just, like, you know, you can't, like, be mean to people, like, you have to, like, be as nice as possible to them because they have a tough life. Like, you don't know what people are going through, like, you don't know what kind of lives they're living, like, it's tough. It's tough being human.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
it's tough living this life. Everybody has shit that's going on in their system, like, you just don't know what's going
Well,
on in their head.
and I've been really just very conscious about saying that, especially to students, for example, because a lot of people are experiencing a lot of anxiety. Like, I've just been saying, do the best you can. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We are experiencing considerable social unrest. We are all sharing in this collective anxiety, and sometimes it's hard to measure behavior and it's hard to measure reactions to things. But I think we will maintain our ability to be good people so long as we can recognize, like, oh, maybe I was overreacting. But like, for example, a couple of weeks ago, on the rare occasion that we ate out, like it was taking us forever to get our food at this place, and it wasn't busy. And like, I was getting annoyed. Like, and then I had to think to myself, I was just like, Donnie, like, calm down, Donnie. Don't be a dick to people. Like, you know, and
Well,
drink another glass of wine.
RB has the best line, "It's tough being human indeed, that's why I'm a furry."
Igni,
The best.
that is a quote worthy of everything.
Oh, boy.
um, but yeah, like, I know a lot of people are always like, there are a lot of people who often don't consider some people as being essential workers, but truthfully, if you're working with any groups of people in the public, you are an essential worker. So I think it's important to realize that. Um, or if you are doing a job that is essential to sustaining something, that is what is defined as an essential worker. So now that we're getting closer to the end of this stream, there were a few discussion questions that we had also. So were there any ones that you wanted to touch on, Ari?
I was wondering about like how the economy is going to get affected by like just the coronavirus and like how what the future outcome is going to be like just what what the coronavirus is going to do for future outlooks.
Yeah, I've wondered that too. I've heard that the housing market is doing surprisingly okay in some regions, but like obviously there are certain industries that are really suffering, especially if they are operating like or if they're closed or operating half capacity. Like I know in my hometown, there have been businesses that have closed. Um, so
Yeah, I feel like small businesses and just like hometown communities, I just like I feel like a lot of businesses that were like kind of like thriving before are just gonna like because I feel like they were starting to like kind of like become better in the last few years. They're just like all of a sudden just collapsed.
oh yeah,
Just
oh and it's
totally.
so fast too. And like I guess what really upsets me the most though is had it federally been acknowledged as an important issue from the get-go, there would have been resources available for businesses, whether it be stimulus money or, relief efforts. That would like that would have been a thing by now, and I feel like a lot of those businesses probably would still be here.
I think they tried, but then they gave all the money to the NFL.
Yeah. Between that and, of course, partisan squabbling, too. Like, I feel like because the House and the Senate are so polarized that there was just this does this make sense? This gesture, I this isn't applause. This is bipartisan frustration.
It's more like this, isn't it?
Oh. Oh, you can tell we're getting to the end because we're getting funny now. I mean, I think we're always funny, but
It's the wine.
truly it is.
Truly, it is.
Oh, that was a really bad pun.
It was the best.
Oh my goodness. That requires another drink. Anywho, but I really do think that the economy would be in a better place if there were a little bit more of a foundation established and seriousness taken toward the beginning of this entire thing.
Yeah,
So,
and like the Fed said that job losses aren't going to be as bad as they said it was going to be. So they're expecting like not as bad of losses in the second quarter.
well, that's good.
So it's only like 8% at this point.
Well,
So
and the truth is, I think where the federal government failed, a lot of state governments were trying to help small businesses. Like I know in Michigan, there's been some efforts on that front. So, I just hope that I hope that the losses are very much minimal, you know. But and I know we've had conversations about academia. I know like a lot of like higher education institutions are struggling financially because I mean if people aren't comfortable going to school, they're not going to enroll in universities and colleges, so there goes tuition money that, that they're not receiving, which results in like furloughs, job cuts, early retirement buyouts, so on and so forth. So, um,
Yeah, I feel like more people are gonna take out loans, or be more apt to take out loans, and, so interest rates are gonna be higher.
oh yeah, for sure.
And so then we're gonna be seeing some, like, ridiculous stuff in, like we're just gonna be busting in, like, 10, 15 years. We're gonna
Yeah.
need we're gonna need a bailout. I
Oh
feel like
yeah.
we're gonna need a bailout anyway because of what happened because of the 2008 recession, but
Oh, for sure. That's we're gonna be paying for that for a while. And the truth is, like, I know, like, for the state of Michigan here, like, I remember one of the officials mentioning that it's gonna take us several years to recover financially from like, the state itself is gonna take several years to recover financially. So, I think this is a good place to focus on the final question. Um, and the last question that you created, I really, really like. I mean, I liked all of them, but this one in particular is pretty good. What can we do as private citizens? It seems like there are so many help wanted signs, but so many unemployed people. Do we expect people to work minimum wage jobs during this time? Um, or is this a purely anecdotal, you know, type of scenario? So, what do we do? What can we do?
have I just is this something that I've just been noticing? Have you noticed a lot of for help signs and but, like, a lot of unemployment?
I have, yeah. I think a lot of people I think there are job openings, but I do think that a lot of people are anxious about working. At least some people are. Um, and the truth is, like, honestly for me, like, cause like, I'm very much in a privileged position in my life because I teach in higher education. I have some pretty good job security. And if we want to advocate for people, I think the best way that we can do it is, of course, voting. Like, that's always going to be my go-to, voting. But I really think that it's important to communicate with um, local officials, elected officials. It's important to communicate with the offices of state elected officials, federal elected officials, because they do listen to their constituents, even though I know a lot of people don't believe it. They do listen to their constituents. And if there are enough people voicing concerns, if there are good suggestions put forth, I do believe there is a potential for better solutions to be created.
I think there was a song I heard once that said, "I found a job, I had a job, and then I was sad."
That sounds like the anthem, the pandemic anthem.
Um,
What do you think we could do?
I you know, I'm concerned because I feel like it's like quality versus quantity, like because I feel like the quality jobs are not out there. Like I feel like it's my problem. Like I'm a writer. I well, I'm not working because I'm disabled, but I'm a writer. And I hate to say that I'm a writer because of reasons, but um I want to get paid for my writing and my art and all of these things. Um but you know, people tell me that I should go get paid to work at a gas station or get paid to be a data entry operator or to work at Meyer, these these jobs in which you get paid 13, 14, 15 bucks an hour. And it's like, you know, these to me are like they'll pay the bills.
They'll pay the bills, but they're not wholesome and fulfilling.
They're not wholesome and fulfilling. They're not jobs that will make me happy, and they're not quality jobs.
Right.
And
It
so
is it's
and so
challenging getting to that point.
our generation is looking for jobs that will make them happy.
Yeah, exactly. And I
And
think
so there's a crisis of character.
I y you know, that sounds like a good episode. Like, I feel like we could literally talk an hour about that because we've both have been on journeys. Hmm, interesting. Ugh, see, ideas come up even when we're having good conversation. But it's true though. Like, it is I think it's definitely a generational thing, and it's a conditioning, and I think it's gonna take time to unlearn that conditioning, but it's possible, you know? So, alright, so as we wrap things up here, Iggy has a question. What's the timestamp for when I made y'all crack up? That was about, I would say, 12 minutes ago. So probably when you go through and rewatch the video, it'll be at like it'll be at like at 54 minutes or so, like 53, 54 minutes. Any chance to get Ari and I to crack up, I know people will take advantage of it. I love it. All right, my friends. Well, we really appreciate you tuning in and listening, especially during these very anxious times. All we hope is that maybe our show may help you get through it a little bit better, and knowing that you're not alone, knowing that it's possible to have really important conversations like this amid all this stuff. So, Ari, do you have any parting words for everybody?
Just, keep your cool, be like me, practice meditation to keep yourself centered during these very uncertain times. Um, you know, it's going to be all right. You know, if you feel yourself spiraling out of control, there are videos on YouTube to help center yourself. Don't worry, it's going to be all right.
It'll be all right. We can get through this. We'll get through this together, right? All right, my friends. We love you. Have a wonderful night, and we will see you next Friday. Bye.